North Carolina is the last state in the union to prosecute all 16 and 17-year-olds as adults. Earlier this year, New York changed its criminal justice laws to raise their age for juvenile offenders. It has been a long road to get to this point in North Carolina. And for some residents, their criminal history from their teenage years still haunts them. Tonight, we take a look inside the juvenile justice system and why some say now is the time to raise the age. Rodney Robbins' son Justin is now 37 years old.
He's not had any legal problems since he's been 16 or 17 years old. None, absolutely none.
But a mistake from nearly 2 decades ago still follows Justin today. It looks like a long list.
It's terrible. If you saw this, it's basically they vandalized cars, this group of teenagers, including my son, and each event is treated as a separate offense.
Justin, who is mentally challenged, was part of a group of teens who vandalized cars. He was 16 at the time, but charged as an adult with felony larceny and pleaded guilty to misdemeanor charges. Is there something adult Justin would tell that 16-year-old Justin about that day?
Not to do it.
Big mistake.
Yes. I would tell anybody who's 16 or 17 that your record will always stick with you.
That's because North Carolina now stands as the only state where 16 and 17-year-olds are automatically tried as adults. That means no matter the offense, if you are 16 or 17 and put into the criminal justice system, it goes on your record and stays there.
Over 90% of our parents think the law is already 18 for adult jurisdiction. Well, to that 90% of the parents, I would say, I'm sorry, it's actually 16 right now for adult jurisdiction.
Right now, it is common to see 16 or 17-year-olds standing side by side with other suspects in courtrooms across the state. Some of North Carolina's leading law enforcement and judicial officials want to see that changed. In September of 2015, Chief Justice Mark Martin convened the Commission on Administration of Law and Justice. It was a comprehensive and independent review of the state's court system. One of the leading issues to come out of that review was that the court system is throwing its support behind the idea of raising the juvenile age.
You're not going to be able to turn around every young person who, for whatever reason, decides to go down the path of a life of crime. We'll see them in adult court. But those of us that we can put a little bit of a caution sign in front of them, try to give them the counseling and resources they need to be able perhaps to recover from mistakes they're making as a teenager. And then they can be a contributing adult citizen.
We're going to walk into an actual room so you can kind of get an idea or a feel of what it's going to be like for a child when they enter this facility.
Charles Dingle runs the Youth Development Center in Chatham County. The facility houses 32 juveniles.
It's a sink toilet combo. Every child has a bunk.
Who entered the criminal justice system before they turned 16.
We have computers set up that the kids can keep up with technology while they're here.
The idea here is to give these kids structure, accountability, classroom time, and discipline. You obviously can tell that you're in an enclosed area, you have the fence here, but this doesn't have that feel, I think, that we all have envisioned of what a jail yard looks like.
Correct. Well, we're dealing with children. We understand that, and yes, of course, they have broken the law, they've done some things, but at the end of the day, it's a child. So even though they're here, and we tell the kids we don't talk about the fence, we don't approach the fence, it's here for a reason. They understand that, but it's just normally no different if you was in public school and they had a gate or something where the kids were playing. It's the same feel for children. So we don't have it where, with the barbed wire, lights and all, we don't do that. We're not necessarily the adult setting, and we don't want to give the children that feel. We want to let them know, hey, you made a mistake, but you're also a child, and we understand that.
I was kind of scared because I didn't know how long I was going to be here because my judge told me indefinitely.
We caught up with one of the detainees just a few weeks before she was set to be released from the YDC. She came here when she was 15 and now is about to turn 18. She says she was on a bad path before her incarceration.
Before I got here, I never knew anything about a coping skill. So when I got here, I learned basically coping skills, which are things you can use when you're upset or you're mad or you're just feeling some type of way. Basically, you can use them to calm down. And some of my coping skills, I like to write. So if I'm upset, I have a journal, and I basically just write in it how I feel. Or you can certain people have coping skills where you can talk to staff if you feel like, and if you have like a certain staff that you feel close to, then you can talk to them.
It was a packed house when state lawmakers announced they were ready to tackle this issue.
I knew before I got to the General Assembly, both as a parent and as an employer, that 16 and 17-year-olds were not adults.
The so-called Juvenile Justice Reinvestment Act is an expansive look at the juvenile system, including raising the age. In the past, law enforcement groups, district attorneys, and others had been opposed to the idea of automatically putting 16 and 17-year-olds in the juvenile system. Under the compromise plan, high-level felons would remain in the adult system. Low-level felons would go to juvenile court, with the option of moving it to the adult corrections, and misdemeanors would go to the juvenile system. Tell me a little bit about why this Juvenile Justice Reinvestment Act is so important.
Well, I think because one, it's going to save money for the state of North Carolina. It's the right thing to do for juveniles, and it's the right thing to do for the public because it's going to make the public safer.
How will it make the public safer, in your opinion?
By reducing the amount of recidivism that occurs from a person that enters the criminal justice system, we'll see a reduced amount of victimization and future crimes that will be committed.
For folks who've committed their career to juvenile justice, they say this change just makes sense, but say it will take an upfront investment from the state because the services in the juvenile system outweigh those in the adult system, and therefore cost a lot more.
The difference between costs in prison versus a youth development center is different. It is much more expensive to serve a kid in a youth development center. Why is that? We have more resources. The ratio here is 1 to 8, one staff member for every 8 juveniles. In the adult system, that can be as high as 1 to 50 or 1 to 60. So we give them much more, there's much more interactions, there's much more relationship building. You heard the staff talking about, we have to build a relationship to help break down that wall. If it's 1 to 50, you don't have time to break down the wall. You don't have time to get through to that child and make a difference.
Supporters argue a move to the juvenile justice system isn't a free pass for young offenders.
Electronic monitoring can be involved. If they get in trouble, they can go into detention where you don't pay bond to get out.
But opponents believe 16 and 17-year-old offenders don't belong in the juvenile system when their offenses are harmful.
We would be telling the victims of crime that it's no big deal just because the perpetrators are under 18.
Statistics show that young offenders are not likely to commit violent crimes. In 2014, less than 4% of young offenders were charged with A through E felonies. 16% were convicted of non-violent felonies, but 80% were convicted of misdemeanors. So you're getting ready to open your own business here.
Yes, welcome to the Brooklyn Cafe. We're still a work in progress.
Today in Wilmington, the Robbins family says they still suffer from the mistakes young Justin made. It's a mark on his record that has made his employment difficult. And it's a record they know they will never be able to erase.
They're essentially still children, right? And so it's a question in society of how you address this. And it's a little harsh to threaten a 16-year-old with prison.